Okay, here we are, Citizen's Eye. We're here this evening at Pedestrian Arts for the launch of a very exciting exhibition here called Chromaphilia, and I've got with me one of the artists showing tonight, which is Mark Boot. Hi Mark, how are you? Good. Can you tell us a bit more about Chromaphilia, what the idea was behind it?
The idea behind the exhibition was to show people how we as artists, the three of us, have a similar interest in colour, but a very different way of exploring it and showing it. With my work, I'm very interested in responding to the sort of urban environments, the cities that I've always grown up in, that have in a way sort of made me what I am, and the fact that I've seen them change so much. And I was particularly interested in how we are often guided around cities by lights, by sort of colour-coded maps, and how we're growing very used and sort of very dependent on making sense of what's going on around us, really. With the sculpture here, I was particularly interested in it being in a UV environment, because that's very much the sort of environment that I associate with city spaces. It's electric, it's about light, and particularly over the last sort of 10-20 years, our environments have been full up of LED lights, screens telling us things. We carry around gadgets with screens on them, we communicate through screens, and all of this is triggered by light. Even your washing machine telling you the cycle's closed, or a gadget telling you that the temperature's changed, or how long your electric blanket's on. It's all flashing lights and information, and I find it interesting that we've become very used to using this sort of process of lights as a very immediate way of identifying information, data, light signals, I don't know, traffic signals or whatever, and getting directions, information from that, which we use to make an efficient, I don't know, sense of what's going on around us, so we can function in this environment.
Great. I mean, I've just passed it from outside and it looks incredibly high tech. What kind of stuff have you used practically to make it?
It's not very high tech at all, actually. All of the piping is the sort of copper piping that you find in your house and for gas and water. And I was quite interested in using materials that are very taken for granted. You know, we're very used to having copper piping and probably, I don't know, painting over it to hide it. Things like cable ties are very throwaway. It was actually originally comes from two squashed up milk bottles that I drew lines around. So I don't know if you can see that in there, the sort of 4-pint plastic milk bottles. I took those, I drew around them, created paths around them, and then I sort of squashed them up to get interesting shapes, and then the whole thing sort of developed from there. So a lot of the actual materials are very throwaway, or very sort of things that we take for granted and just sort of dismiss. And I quite like that contrast between something that looks, on the one hand, very digital and almost sort of like a 3D digital animation, but is actually sort of pretty analogue and low-tech.
Great. Now Mark, we met when you were putting up your sort of exhibition that's down at the Phoenix Cube at the moment. Can you tell us a bit more about the link between the two, or the development of your work?
The work at the Phoenix Cube, in the DMU Cube space, is work that I was doing about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's still work that's all about structures and light, and at the time I was working with a lot of perspex, and I was very interested in the way that perspex, particularly things I was using to make sculptures with, diffracted light and reflected light. And I got quite involved with actually photographing and videoing that, and I was very interested in the way the light moved and changed, particularly when I was starting to film it in very controlled lighting conditions, the way that you could get light and dark to actually change and become quite physical, which sounds a little bit odd if you're listening to it, but what I sort of created from that was 2 video pieces. One was a 3-screen installation, and interesting, looking at that for the first time properly, having not seen it for a few years, I think that was probably all about sort of cityscapes, really, although I was interested in space at the time. Looking back at them, a lot of them to me now, I'm looking thinking, wow, it's just a big cityscape, and there are some bits I actually think of as being views that I've seen at night time of the Thames and sort of London behind with lights and reflections. So the connections for me are light and space, and often sort of like working within a space. With the past work, it was about using reflected light to catch edges of perspex tubes and controlling the light so that things disappeared and appeared, and reflections changed your perception of what you're looking at spatially. With this, it's moved into using colour to sort of code pathways around. And although there is a logic to this, the sort of things I was thinking of when I was making this were anatomical diagrams, those lovely 18th century wax anatomical models with veins and arteries. So the blue and the red are very deliberately a bit like veins and arteries. They're the bit that are sort of feeding the whole of the structure, if that makes sense. The green parts are the independent bits, the bits that sort of like these two parts have independently. And then the yellow things are all the connections. So anything that's yellow is what's holding it together. The yellow rings are what link these different pathways together, and the yellow cable ties literally do hold it all together. It's held together by cable ties, which I quite like as well. That's as low tech as you can get.
That's great. Mark, how long are your exhibitions on for?
Both exhibitions are on till the end of November. So the exhibition here, we will be here Saturday the 20th from 12 till 4, and that will be an opportunity for the public to meet the artists. After that, it's Monday to Friday, I think 9:30 till 5:30.
And that's here at Pedestrian Arts in Leicester.
Yeah.
And how about the one at the Phoenix?
The Phoenix is open until the end of November, and you can just walk in and see it whenever the Phoenix is open. So there are two pieces. There's a video piece, and this structure's smaller sister, which is actually in a box in the lounge space. And then the work I was referring to earlier, the video work and the perspex sculptures, and some 3D images actually. Some 3D images that you can sort of put your hand inside, which is quite odd until you see it. They're in the DMUQ space, but they're accessible at any time the Phoenix is open, which I think is about 10 till 10 roughly, or 11 o'clock whenever they're showing films.
Mark, thank you very much for taking time out today, and good luck with the exhibitions.
Okay, thank you very much.